Right. So I was cheeky and actually ran this earlier. And the question I asked is, what universities offer an MBA in innovation and AI? I could ask other universities, but that's probably a bit too wide in terms of our scope of our audience. We want to know more about the innovation side, which this scenario and this client offered, and AI as well, just so we can understand the niche a little bit more. Okay, so in here, it produced us a lovely list. As before, we'll put it in the training notes so you can see it quite easily in the content. We've got MIT, that's quite a famous one. Berkeley's another famous one. Kellogg's is another famous one. Inseed is a famous one. The Tapa School of Business, oh, don't know that one. London Business School. There's quite a few famous names here. Now, when you do this for your own client, actually just look at different ones, maybe within the region and the area. I don't want to do it for this one because I don't want to give it away too much who this client is. But make sure that you also look at universities potentially in the area that you're talking about, and also to your audience's catchment area. Okay. But for here, in this scenario, the purpose of this training course, I'm going to focus on these ones. So you get a feel for how we do research, what we might look for, what we might try and take away from that to inform and put into our communication strategy. So, for example, let's use this one, MIT School of Management. When I share the screen and I go onto the website, I would have a look, get a feel for their tone, what they offer, to get a better idea as them as a company to how they compare to my client's organization. But nearly every single website that you find is going to have links to socials at the bottom. The reason being, it's really good for SEO strategy as well. So nearly every single company is going to do it. So we want to have a look at every socials channels. Right, I'm going to press these so I can share them easier in a minute, and just start to get a feel for the style of what they're actually talking about and how they communicate to those audiences. So let's go and have a look now at maybe their Facebook. Okay, so this is their Facebook website. And immediately, and I'm going to skim over this a little bit because it's less about kind of what you might look at and what you do, and it's more the insights and how you gather those insights to form your strategy. But I know here that they typically have some informational posts. So it's always linking to things like articles that show their expertise in certain areas. So 6 ways to run and nurture IT leadership, which will naturally be a connection to innovation and AI, shall I say. And typically go through the whole different Facebook just to see what the trend is. Is it always these type of posts? How frequently do they connect with the audience? Maybe what engagement that they have, what had more of an uptake than others. So you can consider if that's something that you want to feed into your own strategy. Okay, so now we're on their X platform, and we'll just have a look, see what type of posts there are here. Now, straight away, I quite like this, what I would say is an informational post. So that's insights about the intersection of business-led community and economy development. I like that because it's quite catchy and gets the person's attention. But the others seem very much, again, I know from they're linking to articles. They're a bit wordy, a bit long form, not so catchy. Okay, so let's go and have a look at their YouTube channels. Now, when I've looked through this, I know, I've had a look, the interviews with professors and thought leaders in certain space. Again, they try to show their accreditation, their worth, basically, as a university, about how much knowledge and that they have in the area. Again, this is quite a long form. I know when we looked at socials, I talked about YouTube could be long form content and short content with the shorts. So this is quite long form content with these videos where they're talking about certain topics. Okay. So you could be talking about certain AI topics. You could talk about leadership topics. In this case, you can look at equality. There's different areas that you can talk about to help grab the attention of your audience. So you think, what is it the audience might have values around, as well as what the company offer, and those are the videos that can create to get their attention. And for their LinkedIn accounts, again, this is very much articles for long form content where they give information about the expertise that they have. So it could be a professor, it could be a leadership person they brought on board. Last but not least, we've got Instagram. So Instagram here, they've got more quote-based posts. They're quite static, but when you have a look at them, what you do when you look at all the different clients' channels, try and see what they're saying or how they're saying things, or even what hashtags they're using, because these might be the same hashtags you want to use. Look, see quite a lot of content. Not that many hashtags, there's just one. So things like when you use Insta, hashtags are really good for your organic reach. So think of the spread on that. That's another thing actually which ChatGPT can help us with. So when we're looking at our content, we'll also look at the hashtags we can associate with that example content. Then we look at our reels. So is there anything else? Oh, quite like this one. Looks a bit engaging. What's next for generative? Can't say this. Quite like this one. It's quite engaging. What's next for generative AI? So the multifaceted AI, basically, the ones that can take in multiple forms of information. So it can take in text, visual, and audio. And this is quite a nice, engaging video. I like this. This is more catchy. This is something more that I would say, oh, I want to see this because this will align with the audience. And it's more something that they go, oh, it's caught my attention. And this is probably what we need to consider and think when we're creating our strategy. Right. You've done your research. You've had a look at the different social channels aligned to how similar the organizations are to your clients. Now, remember, it doesn't have to be the famous one like we did here, just as a scenario to help talk you through this course. But look at ones that might offer them in different ways. So online training in this scenario, or are in a similar geographical location, either as your services themselves or maybe as your audience's services. But to give you an idea, what I might do is when I've kind of formulated or had a look through everything. Now, my big watch point is don't try and overthink things straight away. Have a look through everything and see what themes start to emerge and what observations you're thinking of, okay? And then you can start to put in something like a chart or post-it notes or stuff like that. But for MIT, we capture some information, and typically it's very much when they do posts or reels, it very much seemed to lead with articles, and that seemed to take it to a website. It led with using this for professors to show information or to give more information on certain topics, or thought leaders in certain areas that might connect with your audience's values, which I quite like that actually. Insta posts were quite static in quotes, which is quite nice, but there wasn't much things like that. Oh, I want to look at that. I liked one of their real videos, but most of the others were a little bit and then the YouTubes had certain topics that might engage with people, maybe on a longer form, right? So in other words, it was a longer video that might help a bit more with people when they come in like a decision point of something rather than driving awareness. Now, I'm not surprised. MIT is quite a famous university, so they probably don't have to drive much awareness like our client, in this case, is a new brand. So I'd probably take a different approach with our client because we do need to drive awareness. We need to catch up the attention of the audience. Observations that I made is, you know what? X had quite a nice infographic. I quite liked that because it's quite catchy. You can see things quite quickly. That can take time to make, but they're worthwhile. LinkedIn, maybe they are using, or it looked like they're using more for a decision point for action. That action could be to purchase or enroll, shall I say, an MBA degree, which I would expect as well. And I'd expect it for our client in this scenario, especially as we identified that purchase are potentially more on there. And they had a really good mix of communications across the channels. Now, that is an important thing to note for ourselves as well. Don't try and use the same communications across channels. You can get these wonderful scheduling tools, but please try and avoid using the same thing for everything, because it says, right, you can schedule all this channel with just one click. Try not to do that. Reason being is some algorithms will punish you for doing that. And also as well, who likes it from an audience perspective when you get all the same stuff on multiple channels? What you are trying to use your channels is a way of engaging a big enough audience as possible. People aren't going to be on every single one. And if they are, you want to give them more information for a reason to come to your university or to choose your services or purchase your goods. Okay, so use it as a conversation, not as a, I'm just going to shout out the same message for all these channels. Right, let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so you've been super efficient. You've done all your research and analysis on the different social channels for peer-to-peer type organizations, similar organizations, those in the same regions as you or the client. Okay, sorry, not as you, as in the client or as in their audience. So you've done all this good stuff. Now you want to spend some time, you can create a table, but you want to spend some time to try and match these things up. The reason being is you want to see how you can start to create your unique messaging. So here's a nice slide to help me guide what I observed when I look at these different audiences. So some common observations about across the universities that I looked at in this situation is the majority was very much long form content, right? It was so wordy. It wasn't catchy in my perspective. Now, don't worry about making those kind of judgment calls or observations. It might be good to have that, it might be wonderful. But this client in this situation or scenario needs to get awareness. Awareness typically means people of that mindset aren't going to read a whole big dialogue of information from you. They first want you to catch their attention. That means that we have the opportunity to create messaging that can grab the attention of our audience during awareness. But we want to do it in a nice way. We don't want to say, hey, I just want your attention. We want to do it in a way that maybe they're interested in. So gamification could be something that helps drive that interaction with them. And the reason why we want to try and drive interaction as soon as possible with our audience and our reach, get the biggest reach and drive interaction with the audience as soon as possible, is we get insights from those interactions, right? It's not Big Brother and tracking everyone, but we start to see a theme of what people did or didn't like and what they're interested in to inform our content going forward. When you're building awareness, test things, see how they work, take the data and the insights and tweak when needed. But this is a very good starting point based off the information already out there. Now, I know I didn't give you insights to the other different types of local companies or universities in this case, because I don't want to give out what the client was. However, I do know that typically, shall I say, universities or the education system, when it comes to higher education, isn't that kind of fun in terms of the information. And I don't know if it's regulatory sometimes or what. And it can be a bit dry, if I'm very honest. So this is why I'm like, you know what, this is very different. So I do want to try this and see what we can do. I also noticed they had a very big reliance on their professors. Now, this is a brand new university. They don't have professors. So it's like, oh my God, what do we do? But don't worry. This means that we then just have to lead on differently to thought pieces or what the company, the university will offer. So maybe, and this is what I'd ask the client, do you offer your services in different ways? Are you going to embrace hands-on more AI technology with the latest AI innovations in companies? Now, that's a big key point, because I know full well in education and kind of curriculums are sometimes so slow to move that by the time you're studying it could be out of date. So if they offered that unique point, right? And I know they did actually in this case, because there was different things that they can get past that enable them to do that. So that is a unique selling point to my audience. It can also be about how you use things more hands-on. So when you look at the observations, kind of sense check it with a client and say, is this making sense? Because I'm thinking this is our unique messaging. Is it aligning with how you provide your services? Is it aligning with the tone of our audience, etc.? And I say the tone of our audience, that means, you know what, we are ready to start to see how it all starts to structure together to see what communications we might start to do. And I say communications, we learn over time and we tweak over time, but I'm going to give you some examples of what you can provide to a client. Not these particular ones, because you're going to have your own, but we're going to do some content examples based on all the information we've gathered and we've learned. So see you in the next course.